Reagan, we mentioned you guys at the Daily Caller have a seat in the briefing room. Caroline Levitt added that new media seat yesterday. Tim Pool of Timcast held the seat. I want to play for you, for the audience, what he asked, and then ask you how that went over. Take a listen.
Many of the news organizations that are represented in this room have marched in lockstep on false narratives, such as the Very Fine People hoax, the Covington smear, and now what's being called the Maryland Man hoax, where an MS-13 gang member adjudicated by two different judges, I believe, is just simply being referred to as a Maryland man over and over again. Now, in an effort from the White House to expand access to new companies, you've created this new media seat. So I'm wondering if you can comment on, following this expansion, you've had numerous outlets disparage the companies that you've had sit here, as well as the reporters. I'm wondering if you could comment on that unprofessional behavior, as well as elaborate if there's any plans to expand access to new companies.
Sure. Well, we certainly welcome diverse viewpoints in this room, which is one of the reasons we have you in here, and there's many new faces in this room in comparison to the previous administrations. We want to welcome all viewpoints into this room. We welcome unbiased journalists who really care about the truth and the facts and the accuracy, and you rightfully pointed out the Maryland Man story, which I, from this podium, when The Atlantic published it, on that very first day, I came to this podium and said, this is wrong. The press in this room have this story wrong, and we have seen more and more evidence come to the table that we have had all along. We were always right. The president was always on the right side of this issue to deport this illegal criminal from our community. And it is despicable to see the media continue to refer to this individual as someone who is just a peaceful man living his life in Maryland. This was and always has been an illegal criminal, an MS-13 gang member, and a designated foreign terrorist. And the administration maintains our position to deport these individuals from our community. So thank you for being here, Tim. It's great to see you.
So Reagan, first, how did that question go? I mean, those guys must not have liked getting called out. But secondly, I know that she chose to answer, Caroline, that is, to answer the question about Abrego Garcia and that specific line about being a family man from Maryland. But I think that Tim Pool was getting at a much bigger issue here, which is that these people, and you guys have brought this up, they don't have a ton of credibility, and yet they don't face a ton of accountability. So first, how did the question go over? And then secondly, what is the injection of all of these other people done to the briefing room in terms of holding them accountable or not?
Yeah, well, looking at that clip, Sean, you start to see heads pop up. Like they're all typing on their laptops and their heads pop up and like, oh my gosh, this guy's taking a shot at us. I'm yet to hear, sometimes you hear those scoffs in the room, but I'm yet to hear like a real outrage. I know that Mary Margaret Olohan kind of had a back and forth with NBC White House correspondent Kelly O'Donnell, who used to be the WHCA president, about when Saagar was in the new media seat. I think she had a problem with the fact that Caroline called Saagar new media. And she, contested that or whatever. But
wait,
for the most part,
explain. Like,
yes.
I want to make sure I get this. Like, Kelly O'Donnell of NBC went after Mary Margaret, or Mary Margaret asked her to comment on it?
So I guess when Caroline introduced Saagar, she called him new media, and Kelly, from Mary Margaret's account, like mumbled something under her breath. And you can see Caroline in this clip say, excuse me, because Caroline can hear it. Kelly doesn't say anything else. Caroline moves on. Mary Margaret ends up tweeting about it and says it looks like she had, a problem here. And I know that they ended up speaking afterwards about that interaction. I'll keep that conversation personal between the two of them. But, just things like that is what you're seeing in the briefing room. Eugene Daniels, he's the president of the WHCA. He sent out a statement a while back.
I don't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Look, Monica, is there something going on right there at the White House?
I think President Trump is coming down the driveway on the North Lawn here. Do you want if I take you guys with me? Is that
apologize. I don't mean to jump into Reagan.
No, you're good.
I see everybody.
Can I flip this camera? Oh, wait, that doesn't work. Okay, let's try and see if I could take you guys with me here.
We've got some breaking. This is live.
I don't know if you can see him.
What is he just walking down the driveway?
Yeah, I believe he is just walking, checking out, surveying the grounds. Everyone's kind of, as you can see here, gathered on the North Lawn here, which is pretty interesting. Yeah, President Trump, I don't know if you can see him. He's with a group of people.
Can you see him from your angle right now?
Yes.
And is he just looking at bushes and trees and shrubbery, or?
I think he's just checking out. He's right by the fountain.
That's
here.
so funny.
You know, the funny thing is I watched him do this at hotel properties where he just wants to like go examine. I was in the Oval Office the other day. Like I can just see him saying like, let's go walk the grounds and I'm going to point out things. So is there Park Service folks with him that you can see,
Yes.
Monica? Or,
yep.
Okay.
I believe he's with a group of Park Service people and a couple Secret Service agents. Yep, there he is.
So Sean, you think he just wants to go admire things? That's what he's doing right now?
Also, they brought him up some issue with the grounds and he said, well, let's go look at it. That's very Trump, you know, instead of just being told. By the way, Monica, if you want to tell him that you're on the show with us right now and have him come over, I have no problem with that. All right, we're going to break out of the show for just a second. I think Monica has the president making some comments. Here we go.
And other presidents, right? But under Biden, it got really worse. China got out of control. We're losing $1 trillion a year. Trillion, not a billion, not a billion. The country that's ripped off by every country in the world. Thank you. Sir,
all right, that was really cool. Thanks to Monica. Now back to the show. Reagan, I know. Let's just get back to this for a second because I think the issue that I have as we see all these reporters run off to chase Trump is so the bottom line that you're getting at is that the WHCA, the White House Correspondents Association, led by Eugene Daniels, what are they? I mean, they seemingly should be in favor of more media. That's what they claim they're for. They celebrate the First Amendment, and yet what is their position on the addition of so many new voices?
CNN read a statement in the package they put out today about new media from Eugene, and he said that his position is that, you know, in order for the White House to be covered correctly, it needs to be covered by experienced, fair, and balanced journalists. And personally, I don't believe that anyone can be unbiased. We should all be upfront
First of all, that guy,
where
by
our
the way,
bias is
Eugene
laid.
Daniels is basically a Kamala Harris spokesperson, and he wants to talk about unfair. Is that so? They put that really?
Yeah, and you know, when I look at the WHCA, I know Eugene Daniels put out a statement when all the shakeup was first happening at the top of the year, and it was public to the WHCA, and one of the WHCA members responded publicly to everyone and said, you know, no disrespect, but why weren't we ready for this? And I think with that specific reporter, he and I probably disagree on many things and stand on opposite sides of the aisle. But the question of why wasn't the WHCA ready for the fact that the practices that they have, the way they treat the media, the new media, the way they are failing to adjust to the way the media environment is changing is out of date. They should have been ready for this. They should have known this is coming. And so it's only going to get worse for them, both in their network ratings, in their job security, but also in covering the White House. If they don't understand that the way that the Americans are consuming the media is just changing. And that is a fact. And you just have to be humble and look inside as a journalist and say, okay, what can I do now? Do I need to get on Twitter a little bit more? Is it Instagram Reels? Is it TikToks, etc.? That's, you know, just the name of the game, and expanding and understanding how to get Americans their news. And they can't seem to grasp that. And that, I think, is going to make the WHCA less and less relevant and cause problems for all of these people in the long run. So the way that they're fighting this is it's not wise, in my opinion, just looking, you know, how the media landscape is changing.
So this is the White House Correspondents' dinner weekend. This is a big weekend in D.C. where D-list, C-list celebrities come into town. Everybody tries to get their selfies so they can post them on Instagram. There's a series of parties. Natalie Winters, you know, Steve Bannon's War Room and Raheem. I don't think I'm giving away anything. But they're hosting an alternative event Saturday night. Is the goal to sort of compete with them, just to host an alternative event? Like why Substack is hosting an alternative event Saturday night as well. It seems like the pieces, is this the end of the White House Correspondents' Dinner as we've known it in the past?
I mean, if it's a competition, there's only one, network and institution that's undergoing mass layoffs and restructurings and in firings. Worm is hiring, and I think ever ascended. So I definitely think we win that competition. But yeah, we're throwing, I think, sort of a counter programming, not a dinner, just a party called the Uninvited. I actually honestly am trying, and I think I actually have an invite, believe it or not, to the actual dinner, which is funny. I may be doxing myself. You guys know where we love to get our hands dirty and be amidst the legacy media. So I may make an appearance there. We shall see.
Wait, you may go to the actual dinner.
Yes.
Okay, can I ask, Monica, do you have any interest in actually going to the dinner, or will you be going to any of these alternative events?
Absolutely not. If I was invited to an alternative event, maybe, but I have no desire to go to the dinner at all.
Reagan, what about you guys? The Daily Caller, I know you guys might have a seat, but I know talking to Tucker back in the day, he's always said they never felt like there was a need to buy a table at the dinner.
I didn't go last year. I'm definitely not going this year.
Is this the end of the dinner, do you think? I mean, I think they got rid of the comedian. I don't know what other person they have.
Well, it's certainly a disaster for them this year. I mean, President Trump's not going, which is really no surprise. Caroline Leavitt's not going. I don't think that's a surprise either. But Amber Ruffin, the anti-Trump comedian chosen for this event, she's called the president a toddler with his pants pulled down, a murderer, and then President Trump, and then Eugene Daniels made the decision to say, no, actually, we're going to pull her from this event. And that was after she said she didn't want President Trump to come, that she was going to be biased and only attack one side of the event. And so I think just the PR disaster around her and what Eugene Daniels had to do to kind of remedy that is enough to sink at least this year's dinner. And I think it's not looking good for future programmings if this is the foot that we're starting off on.
Natalie, do you guys, have you tried, or do you have any interest in joining the White House Correspondents Association, or would your goal be to help be part of an alternative association?
Well, you may be familiar with my attempts to join the National Press Club.
Right, which, by the way, that you got rejected. I don't understand.
Denied. I thought they could have used my, $30 in dues a month, since everyone there is like losing their jobs and they've all been fired. But apparently they did not want my money or my presence. They rejected me, saying that I did not meet the qualifications as a White House correspondent, co-host of probably one of the largest MAGA podcasts, and long-time journalist who's broken many exclusive stories. But I did not make the cut. I would say good riddance. But the other point too I would make on all of this idea, right, that it's President Trump who has some like robust new media initiative that is, North Korean sycophantic in its style, which frankly, I think dovetails quite nicely with the like color revolution, I think, depiction of President Trump as this, foreign aspiring autocrat and dictator, because in order to do that, you have to go after, the free press, the idea of free press, right? Oh, it's state controlled media, it's state funded propaganda. This is nothing more than just, them freaking out because they're losing narrative dominance, right? That's essentially what this all boils down to. But I think the more interesting point on all of this is that Joe Biden himself had his own version of a new media initiative, and it was the massive censorship of the American people. It was government funded, it was government subsidized, it worked in conjunction with media outlets and with the tech platforms, and not a single question was asked about it in the briefing room. In fact, the only questions that were asked by reporters about this whole situation, which DNI Tulsi Gabbard just declassified, was essentially, what are you guys doing to censor misinformation? So they purposely didn't report on it. They were in on it. And I think that the American people would take this version of new media, not just because it's actually catering to a majority of Americans. We're not even talking about like 20-30% of viewership. MSNBC gets like 10,000 views. Your podcast gets that in 5 minutes, right? Like, so I don't really understand what metric or what leg they're standing on by acting like, oh, well, we're the elitists, we're the institutionalists. But I think if you broaden out that critique, it's essentially the Biden regime on repeat. What do I mean by that? All these Harvard Kennedy School educated elites, these Ivy League cited, foreign policy experts that we have to, trust the experts. And it's President Trump who, how many times have you heard, is going to make us look like a fool on the world stage? Well, it's actually his advisors who don't necessarily have that Ivy League pedigree. They weren't all fellows with the Brookings Institution or CSIS or the Carnegie Endowment. They're actually the ones who are getting results on the world stage. So all these people who went to, journalism school, and because they work at the Times and they have a byline there, they think that that makes them superior to us. It's like, really, what did Jake Sullivan accomplish despite his, Harvard and Yale education? And I went to Chicago, so I'm not dunking on higher ed, but they're so out of touch. But the issue is that these people have never once been called out. And that's why you're watching in real time a panic and a meltdown over our presidents being there, because they truly don't know what to do with us. And I think that's the most interesting facet of all the coverage that we've been getting. Like, they don't even know how to cover us. New media has been around forever. And by the way, in my Politico, the segment about me, they got half of the details about me wrong. They said that I've only co-hosted War Room for a few months, that the first time I was ever on the show was when Steve went to prison. That's not even true. And not that I'm the huge deal, but if you actually understand any about the media landscape, you would know, you know what I'm saying? So they're not very good at their jobs. And even they did a recent New York Times piece on me, and they got some of the biographical stuff wrong too. And I'm like, if I did that, I would be accused of spreading misinformation. They would say my press pass needs to be revoked. I literally wasn't allowed to join the National Press Club, but they do the most basic stuff wrong. And they're still hailed as oh, we know what we're doing. We're the experts in the room. It's no, you're not. You're pseudo-intellectuals. So sorry to trauma dump on your podcast, but these people impugn me all the time, so I have to give it back to them.
No, I love it. Thank you for being with us. Reagan, I want to follow up with you, though, specifically on Pete Hegseth. There's a lot of stories about Pete, and I know Natalie's got to go, so I just want to follow up with you on this because there's a lot of attacks coming Pete Hegseth's way, right? And the funny thing is, when I look at a story, a lot of times what I look first at is the byline, right? So the people that are attacking Pete Hegseth right now are White House reporters, not necessarily Pentagon reporters. Caroline Leavitt calling out NPR, saying that it's a fake news story, that there's clearly that there was some attempt to find a replacement for Hegseth. What are you hearing inside the White House in terms of Hegseth's standing?
That's interesting. Also, looking at the NPR story, if I read it correctly, it was single sourced, which that's also something I look at as a journalist when I'm reading these stories, is I'm looking at, who are they sourcing? And a lot of times it's anonymous, but once you start to understand who the big players are within the government, you can kind of figure out who's leaking, who's talking, it all starts to, it's like a puzzle. And so that was single sourced, and I'm not exactly sure who that would be, but I think that's it's wild to run with some accusation like that that's so large, that is, and just single source it like that. It reminds me of this story of his West Point acceptance that came out right before he was, to be voted on by the Senate to be confirmed. It was, they ran with this story, ProPublica ran with the story that he, was not accepted into West Point and that he had lied. And all they had was, this one sentence email from a person they had spoken to at West Point. And I think that things like that should be, if you're an American, you should be skeptical of things that you see that are one source. You should really be, everyone should have a media class that helps them understand how to read these stories. And so I tend to believe right now that Hegseth is okay. I think that President Trump, similar to what we saw with Mike Waltz in the previous Signal Gate, is that I don't think he wants to give the left a scalp that easily. And Hegseth has been the cabinet official who is the most embattled. And so I do think for now that Hegseth is okay. But it definitely, that growing pressure, we know how Trump is affected by, bad press. We know how he's affected by people talking. And so, if Hegseth can get his ducks in a row, I think he'll be okay. But it's the drama around the Pentagon is not good. And I did a story last week. There's growing there's a growing war going on within the State Department between Trump loyalists and Senate loyalists and how to put Trump's agenda into the State Department. And they're battling over that. And so if these continue to bubble up, these wars, these fights, these leaks, I think we're going to see a firing at some point.
Interesting. Hey, Monica, anything big going on there? President done looking at shrubbery?
Yes, I'm so sorry about the abrupt exit, but the president was actually just on the North Lawn looking at putting in a flagpole, taking out maybe a tree or two. He's putting in a brand new flagpole on the North Lawn. I believe the flag is going to come in around a week or so, and they're going to start installing a brand new, beautiful, big flagpole here on the North Lawn. He actually went to the Palm Room doors, which is right by the press briefing doors to enter, and he gaggled for, I'd say, about 3 minutes on all things tariffs with China, on all things with trade and the UK and the EU. And then, of course, he was asked about that beautiful flagpole. So we can expect maybe some construction on the North Lawn maybe in the next week or so. So stay tuned. But yeah, that was very unexpected. Sean, as you know, anything can happen here at the White House.
No, very unexpected. And thank you for bringing that to us live. That was awesome. I do want to bring up another story that caught my eye yesterday. RFK bans these comes out with FDA Commissioner McCary. I want to play you a clip of what he had to say on red dyes because I was fascinated by this. Take a listen.
What are these food dyes actually doing to kids especially?
Yeah, well, if you look at the ingredients for Fruit Loops 20 years ago, it was very, very different than it is today. And today we use chemicals in Fruit Loops that are banned in virtually every country in the world. So if you buy Fruit Loops today in Canada, it is made with vegetable dyes. If you buy it here in the United States, it's made with petroleum synthetics. And as I said in that clip, nobody wants to eat petroleum. So when we went to meet with the food companies, I said to my staff, if they want to eat petroleum, they should put it in their food themselves at home. They shouldn't be feeding it to Americans who, without their knowledge, without their consent. And today we announced that we're going to get it out of the food. So there are 9 dyes, Jesse. 2 of them we're going to ban immediately, orange bee and red dye 2. We're going to accelerate the removal of red dye 3. So we're going to bring it down to under a year. And the other 6 dyes, within 18 months, we hope to get them out of all the food.
Monica, here's my question for you. This was a big, big deal for the MAHA movement. Robert Kennedy, the secretary there, following through on a commitment that President Trump made that he brought to the forefront. Why didn't this get more attention?
That's a great question. And I don't know why there would ever be any pushback from the left to involving this measure. I mean, this is something that I think everybody can get behind. You'd be surprised how much poison is in our food. You know what canola oil was technically supposed to be used for? Machinery, like oiling machinery.
It actually stands for Canada Oil.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous that it's in almost every single food product. I mean, I go to the grocery store and I want some granola for my yogurt, and there's canola oil in the granola. Like, it doesn't make any sense how we got here. And these dyes, I mean, there's no wonder why autism rates have spiked 10 times over the last 10, 20 years. There's something to this. And I think that RFK Jr.'s movement to make America healthy again, to get all this crap out of our food, is something that I think everybody can get behind. We didn't sign up for this when we purchased our food. We want something organic. We want just all real ingredients. And thank God RFK Jr. is putting an end to it. And this administration as a whole is too.
Reagan, another big announcement that didn't get a ton of attention, Linda McMahon on student loans. I want to play for you what she had to say about student loans, because I think that you guys really do, talk to a younger audience. I want to know how this is going over. So listen to McMahon talking about student loans.
In case you missed it, the Department of Education announced that on May 5th, we will restart collections of student loans in default. The federal student loan portfolio stands at nearly $1.7 trillion, and only 4 in 10 student borrowers are in repayment. Unlike the previous administration, who made false promises and pushed an illegal student loan bailout, we will not force American taxpayers to take on the debts that are not theirs. There's no such thing as forgiveness, just shifting the payment burden from one party to another. Borrowers should pay back the debts they take on. Please visit studentaid.gov for more information on student loan repayment options.
So, Reagan, how is this going over with young people who, for the last several years, basically gotten off the hook paying the loans that they have taken out?
You know, I haven't seen mass outrage yet, but if I know anything from covering the Biden administration, this was something young people feel very passionately about. And it was something they were very concerned about when, you know, the student loan forgiveness portal would go down and they weren't able to get their forgiveness. That was a massive problem for young people. And so I do expect there to be backlash to this once probably it's covered a little bit more. The concept of, you know, you have to accept responsibility for the fact that you chose to make a massive financial decision and take out all this money, and now you need to pay for it and you can't push it off on somebody else is a very basic concept that I think hopefully these students should have learned in college. You know, I myself have student loans, but I'm not in debt to the federal government. I'm in debt to Hillsdale College. Hillsdale College doesn't take any federal money from the government. So when it came to taking out student loans, the school itself had a program where I could take out student loans from Hillsdale College. And they have been really great in working with me on a fixed interest rate, on a payment plan. And I think that's a really responsible way for children, you know, to take out loans. Yes.
Right. Now, the student, Monica, real quick in 30 seconds, Turning Point USA obviously represents a big group of these people. Is Turning Point got a position on this?
Yeah, I mean, they are firmly standing behind that. If you take out money in a loan, it's your responsibility to pay it back. I have a very good girlfriend of mine who has been trying to make her payments on her student loans under the Biden administration, and they were just sitting in limbo for months. She's been making $5,000 in increments, $5,000, and the money's just sitting in this pool in her account, and it's not going towards repaying any of those loans. So that was under the Biden administration. So I'm hoping that her and others are finding some relief with this new administration, of course.
All right. Thank you guys for being with us. Monica, I appreciate you giving us those live updates with President Trump out there on the driveway. I'll be interested to hear how you guys do this weekend, whether the events. We'll have you back soon to talk about how the White House Correspondents' Dinner weekend went with you all.
Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.